Okay, let's get started. So before our next speaker, we want to quickly show you something that we've been working on. We got you all here today and didn't want to waste it. So hope everyone enjoyed lunch. We're going to go from microsliders to microservices now. And this is ReadMe build. So we've been working on documentation for APIs for about 2 years now. And one of the things we realized is, documentation is stupidly important, but it's also only as good as the API itself is. And one thing that we found about the best APIs and the best documentation is they work really well together. So we work on something called ReadMe build, which makes it easy for you to build microservices, external APIs, anything like that really easily. It takes a few minutes to build. We're going to build one right in front of you, show you how it goes. And it has things like versioning, has things like API keys. Versions are immutable, so if you upgrade and launch a new version, it doesn't break anything. We kind of took everything we liked about APIs and tried to boil it down to something. So it's still in beta. Everyone has an invite code on the back of the things you want to play around with it. It is in beta, but if you want to talk more about it, we'll be over in the corner. But yeah, so Marc and Ashley are going to show you how it works. Take it away.
Hi, I'm Marc. I'm an engineer at ReadMe, and I'm going to walk you through building a really simple service using ReadMe build. You can follow along on the purple screen above my head.
I'm Ashley. I do product at ReadMe, and I'm going to show you how easy it is to use an API built on ReadMe build. You can follow along on my pinkish screen above me.
So I'm going to walk you through building a really simple math API. And as Greg said, all of you have invite codes in the back of your name tags, so feel free to follow along. So let's get started. Yeah. The first thing we're going to do is install the API command line tool. We can do that by doing npm install api-g. For those of you that aren't familiar with Node, npm is the package manager, and -g means we're installing it locally. I'm not sure. Hopefully you could see that and read that. So I can run that, and it's installed. So I can do API sign up, and then sign up for ReadMe build. This will ask you for your invite code. And if you do this part and follow along, there'll be an interactive piece at the end that you can participate in, and hopefully the internet holds out well enough for it to work. So yeah, let's get started building the service. First, I can get started by doing API init. And this will ask you a few questions about your API so I can set up the initial files. So we're going to call our service math. And when you create yours, you have to name it something different because in the public directory, everything has to have a unique name. And then it's going to be asked if it wants to be public or private. Public is accessible for anybody, and private is only for your team. So that's really good for internal microservices. So I'll set everything up, and then you can see that there's a few new files in my directory. I have a package.json, a README file, and a math.js file. Let's start by editing the math.js file. So first thing we have to do is figure out what we want our API to do. So we're just going to make a really, really simple one that just multiplies two numbers together. So I'll do x times y. It'll take two parameters. And as you can see, we can actually edit the documentation right in the comments here, and this will show up as documentation on the website. So I'll take two numbers, x and y. Yeah, normally I would write better docs than this, but it's not worth watching me type. So it'll return a number, which is x times y. So now that we have the documentation done, we can start writing some code. And the first thing we're going to do is make sure that the user entered both x and y. So check for that. And if they didn't enter one, we can throw an error. I'll say error for now. And that'll return an error if one of those is missing. But if everything looks good, we can say it worked and success and return. There we go. So now we can go and deploy it. So I can do API deploy, and just like that, it is published to the internet, so anybody can use it. So I can go here, I have a nice page, and I can send this link to Ashley, and she can start using it.
So now I can see Marc's math API, and in these nice docs, I can see the actions we can take. So here is a code sample, and it has my API key and the params below it. There's a few unique things about this. The first is that there's only one API key for all your APIs on build. So if you're using one API, you don't have to set it up multiple times. The second is that there's no URL or headers or query params. You just type API math.do multiply, and it works. It's the same in Python, Rails, and PHP. Now let's test it out. I'll copy and paste it in a new file, and then right now we're testing out just 3 and 3. That looks right to me. Let's test out another number. I'll change y to 4. Oh no, it's not working. To make sure it's the API, we can go back to the docs and look at the logs. Down here, I can see that I did enter 3 and 4, and the response was still 9, so it must be the API. I'll create an issue to let Marc know there's a problem. When Marc sees the issue, he'll also see the actual logs, so he can debug. This is a really simple API, but if you're using anything more complicated, it'll be great to know the language, browser, and version.
OK, so let's take a look at my code and see where I went wrong. Oh, yep, there's a typo. So it should be data.y, and hopefully this is fixed now. So I can go back to the terminal and do API deploy again. So one thing we realized with APIs is that they can often be unreliable, because even fixing a little bug like this could have unintended consequences. So we made all versions immutable. So we have to deploy this as a new version. And I'm going to go and I'm going to deprecate the old version, since that is a pretty major bug.
Cool, let's try it again. Oh no, I'm still getting the wrong number, but there's a deprecation notice down here letting me know to update the API. Now my API is updated to the newest version. Let's try again. Great, 12 looks right to me. So we have one more thing we want to show you, and the Wi-Fi's been a little bit sketchy, but if we go to our services, we can see this other service called Lights. There's an action called change here. I'm going to copy and now I'm going to copy. And I'll change it to my favorite color, teal.
Ooh. So we've actually been using this all day to control these lights behind me. So I can go to my terminal, and I can type API run lights, and then change, which is the name of the action, and then set a color. So I can set it to be Slack, and hopefully it changes to Slack's colors if the internet cooperates. So if you've been following along, like I mentioned before, you could actually run this on your computer and change the colors of these to be whatever you want. So hopefully that works. And the Wi-Fi has been weird, so hopefully it actually pans out. But we'll see if it starts doing crazy stuff. So obviously before the next speaker, we're going to turn that off, so you guys can't just interrupt. But during happy hour later, we can have you all play around with it, and we can see what kind of cool stuff we can do. Now, obviously, this whole thing is a pretty simple, contrived example. But we think that build is going to be really great for building both external public APIs and internal microservices. After working with APIs for, I was working at ReadMe and talking to you guys, we've discovered that a lot of times APIs can be really hard to use. They can be kind of unreliable, and they're just not as good as they could be. So we really think that build fixes all those problems and makes it really, really easy to make just the best API. So if you have any questions, we have a booth set up over there. You can come ask any of us about it, any ReadMe people. And we're also going to have office hours at our office next Thursday, the 25th. So feel free to drop by and build something with us. Thank you all so much for listening. Enjoy the rest of the conference.